Hi, I'm Melanie O'Connor. I'm Head of Marketing here at BDO Ireland. I'm delighted to welcome Ross Hunt, who's the co-founder and CEO at Outmin, which is an automated bookkeeping company using AI. Welcome, Ross. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Would you tell us a little bit about the role that you have at Outmin?
Well, I'm CEO and founder of the business. So ultimately, I'm in charge of making the big decisions. I suppose there's different types of CEOs. The way I go about it is I think all problems are essentially human capital. So I see my role as getting the best people into the business, putting them in the correct tasks or arraying them correctly, and then I suppose motivating them to execute the goals. And again, while supporting them and making the big calls as they need to be made, I guess.
Yeah. And how did the idea for the business come about?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So my previous business was machine learning. Okay, it was a computer vision business. And I suppose from my past in BDO and then in the business I went to after BDO, I was primarily working in finance departments, and I got into software in the second business. And I suppose what I saw was the learnings across all of those experiences led me to understand that on an infrastructure-wise, there needed to be significant changes in how we produce financial information. So I suppose I was reading a lot and thinking a lot about how the internet or TCP/IP technology got commoditized, particularly how Amazon commoditized it. Okay, so ultimately the big thing I saw was with a new technology, you need these things that are, some people call them primitives, that enable the technology, right? So if you think today, if you need a login page, you just get a login page and plug it into your software. But when the internet started, you had to build your own login page, right? And then if we look at Amazon Web Services, that's a giant primitive, right? So if you don't want a server room and you want to host something in the cloud, you can just use Amazon Web Services, and that was revolutionary at the time. So then what I saw with machine learning or with AI is there's lots of opportunities for primitives in AI. And I thought to myself, well, actually, I think I can see a pathway to making a primitive for finance. And that then led me to selling fast, cheap accounting to build the credibility to do it. So it's been an interesting road, but I suppose had a clear technical vision or a technical idea of what could exist. And then I saw, I suppose, a business pathway that would enable me to make revenue quickly. And that all coalesced into what Outmin is today, I suppose.
That's brilliant. Every startup is different and they all face their own challenges, but how do you frame challenges in particular as a co-founder and now CEO of a startup?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's really interesting. And again, it's something everyone has their own approach. I mean, there's lots of people who are more successful than me, so they probably frame challenges better than I do. But the big thing that I would say is, surfacing all the reality that you can, right? So before you do anything, talk to over 100 people with deep domain expertise who could potentially be customers, all that type of thing, right? So basically do your homework, do your research. I think looking at trends, right? Like what's been making money of recent times, right? What are the big sort of dominant, and again, I think a lot about things like mega trends where we've seen trends that have gone through multiple generations. So even if we look at the rise of the internet, that's a 30 or 40-year-old story now. So actually, that spans a generation, right? So we know the internet is going to continue to get commoditized. It's probably true for the next 20 years, right? So ultimately you can pick, if you look at the rise of renewable energy, right? It's inevitable that's going to continue, okay? So I think identifying like what are the big trends shaping the world around you, then I guess you identify the problem you want to solve. And then I think you talk to a lot of people before you start trying to solve the problem. And then I think you can start. So ultimately, there's a huge amount of preparation work before you do anything. And then once you're into the problem or into the solution or the solution for the problem, I would argue it's just keeping that feedback loop of reality, of triangulated information, to make sure you're always reflecting reality, the decisions, not just that you make, but everyone in your organization reflects reality, listening to your customers. Ultimately, if you keep them happy, everything else tends to work well. So ultimately, I think it's framing, right? So before you start, frame it very granularly. And then once you're into it, just make sure reality keeps coming your way as quickly, as tightly as possible, particularly from your customers.
Definitely. There's a lot of nuggets in there. That's great. I might need to take some notes when I listen back to this. You would have also started your graduate program. You started your career in a graduate program here in BDO in the audit department. How has your time here really shaped your career and led you to where you are today?
Massively so, right? And like in I think in obvious ways, and then maybe in non-obvious ways, right? So the big thing, and I think a lot about people who maybe missed out on the office experience during COVID and things like that. So a lot of things I talk about is that, if you're in your mid-30s or your mid-40s and you're going to work from home for a bit, you're probably going to be productive. You're probably going to know what to do, right? But the unfortunate phrase I use to describe that is, you've been professionally toilet trained, right? And it's non-obvious. Like when I distinctly remember when I was in BDO, you guys sent us on an email writing course, right? And obviously email had been around for a while at that stage. So, everyone thinks, well, I know how to write an email. But writing a professional email is actually quite, and I still use a lot of the structure principles I got from that course today, right? So what I would say is learning how to be a professional, how to array myself professionally. But then I suppose like I was in audit for 3.5 years. So the rigor of the approach, right? So ultimately, if you think about what I said about getting close to reality and triangulating reality, that's what the audit process essentially is, right? It's a verification process to confirm something's real. Okay. So what I found was, structuring audits, getting all the verification points in, solving the problems when you weren't able to verify things. Just think it's incredibly good mental training for almost any problem. And then a really funny curio is the first software system I ever built. So as part of your audit training, you have to do systems notes. And we would do like really elaborate systems notes for big companies where, you guys know this, but for the uninitiated, you interview everyone in the company and you write down exactly like little workflows of exactly what they do, every little function in the business. So the first piece of software I developed, I interviewed everyone in the business before we'd a line of code written. I turned them all into systems notes like I would have done on an audit. And then I had a few design principles that no piece of work could be duplicated. And, you only had one piece of data entry and one way of consuming data and things like that. So then I refined all the workflows based on those principles. And that pretty much was how I built the first software system I ever built. So in many, many ways, I mean, I could keep blathering on, but I would say very, at a fundamental level, really good mental training, mental skills, and then just becoming a professional, I would say.
Oh, definitely. And I know that some graduates might see, an audit graduate program might be a bit boring, but actually it's a really solid foundation for a career in business. Would you agree?
Oh, massively so. And I think it is what you make of it, and it depends what you want, right? So I was, I like business. Like I read the business section of the paper before I went into BDO, so I was into it. But the way I framed it, or the way I described it to people at the time, was I get to see a different business up close and personal every 2 weeks, right? And ironically, I had offers from other like big six practices, say. And one of the reasons I went with BDO was I actually spoke to people I knew who were further along in their careers in those practices. And what they told me was like, you can get caught in like just doing accounts payable for 3 years or doing bank for 3 years or something like that. So I wanted to see entire businesses from top to bottom. So incredible, like for 3.5 years, seeing a different business every 2 or 3 weeks and learning, and like successful businesses, failing businesses, businesses that should be failing but are not, are very badly run, but they just have a lot of customers that like it, and so on and so forth. So I think all of those learnings were incredibly valuable, and I just picked up so many little tricks and skills from seeing all those businesses in that way.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a greater variety of work engagements and client engagements that you get in a company like BDO. Also, it is not an usual transition, but did you know when you were graduating college that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or did you just think you were training to be an accountant when you came in?
No, I did. So the reason I actually did accountancy was I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that I always say, like, I drifted into accountancy. So, the people, cool people drift into like drink and drugs and things like that. I drifted into accountancy. And how would I put it? No, well, so my family are entrepreneurial, right? There's a couple of entrepreneurs in my family. But the reality was I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. So then what I saw was there were successful people in Ireland at the time. And it was weird. So a lot of people maybe don't realize this, but Michael O'Leary and Johnny Ronan say both have accounting qualifications, right? Yeah. So and they're obviously quite different business people, right? But what I noticed was one of the things a lot of the successful Irish business people had in common was an accounting qualification. Now, not really true today, I don't think, but back then it was. So ultimately I was like, okay, well, people who seem to do well have this qualification. Yeah. I don't know what I want to do, but I will see lots of businesses while figuring this out. So for me, it was like just a great way of figuring out what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I was open-minded going in and didn't really know.
Yeah, great. I've got one more question for you. For new graduates who might be in that similar situation, they're graduating college, they might not know what they want to do. What would your advice be to them?
Well, as I say, I think coming to a place like BDO is a great place to start. Yeah. Okay. I think it is what you make of it, right? If you're not curious, if you don't want to learn from these businesses, it's just going to be a waste of time. I definitely saw people who weren't that interested and didn't learn as much as I did because they didn't want to with the greatest will in the world. That's what I would say is you have to really want it. Like, you have to apply yourself. And then the other thing I would say is any opportunity to do something different. So the one other thing that was nice about BDO was on occasion you'd get chances to go out to other audit teams, to corporate finance, to all manner of different things. And I would have been one of the first people to put my hand up any time because I just wanted that diversity of experience, or to see as much as possible to understand what I actually liked. And the other big thing I found about why BDO is a great place to do that is it's incredibly meritocratic. So ultimately, if you execute well, they keep giving you more to do, and different things to do. So I definitely found that was incredibly useful as well. So ultimately, I would say is go into a place where you're going to see lots of different things. Where if you execute well, you're going to be given more to execute, and I suppose you just want somewhere where it's in your control up to a point, right? That's what I would say. Like, if I work hard, if I produce, that I get my reward and I learn a bit more. And I certainly found that in my time here.
Oh, great. Thanks so much, Ross. Really appreciate the time.
No, absolute pleasure.
Pleasure to have you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.